Please subscribe, hit the like button, and let us know in the comments where you are watching from. My name is Rachel. I was married to a man I thought I knew for 8 years. His best friend, Daniel, had been part of our lives since college, quiet, observant, always in the background, until the day he asked to speak with me alone, and everything I believed was shattered like glass hitting concrete. The request came on a Saturday afternoon, unexpected as thunder from a clear sky. Daniel stood at my front door, hands buried in his jacket pockets, eyes carrying a weight I'd never seen before. He asked if we could talk, privately, away from the house. His voice was steady, but something underneath it trembled, urgency wrapped in careful control. My husband, Jason, was at his office. Again, weekend work had become his new religion over the past year, devotion measured in hours away from home. I'd stopped questioning it months ago, tired of hearing the same explanations about deadlines and promotions that never quite materialized. I agreed to meet Daniel at the coffee shop 3 blocks away, the one with mismatched furniture and walls covered in local art. Neutral ground. The walk there felt strange, like crossing an invisible boundary I hadn't known existed. Daniel walked beside me in silence, and I noticed things I'd never paid attention to before. The tension in his shoulders, the way he kept glancing at me, then away, as if rehearsing words he couldn't yet speak. Inside the shop, we chose a corner table far from the windows. He ordered black coffee but didn't touch it. I wrapped my hands around a chai latte, seeking warmth against a chill that had nothing to do with temperature. He opened his mouth, closed it. His fingers drummed against the scarred wooden table once, twice, then stopped. When he finally spoke, his first words were an apology. He was sorry. Sorry for waiting so long. Sorry for what he was about to tell me. Sorry for being complicit in silence. My heart began to race. That primal instinct that senses danger before the mind catches up. I watched his face, searching for clues in the tight line of his jaw, the way he couldn't quite meet my eyes. Whatever he was about to say would change things. I could feel it the way you feel a storm approaching, pressure building in the air, electricity making your skin prickle. He told me Jason was lying to me, not about small things, about everything. The coffee shop sounds, the hiss of the espresso machine, the low murmur of conversations, the scrape of chairs against worn floorboards, all faded into background static. I heard only Daniel's voice, careful and deliberate, as he began dismantling my marriage, word by word. Daniel didn't rush. He laid it out methodically, like an attorney presenting evidence to a jury. Jason wasn't working late. He'd been fired from his job 4 months ago. Not laid off, fired. For embezzling company funds, small amounts at first. Then increasingly bold thefts that eventually caught the attention of the accounting department. The company had chosen not to press charges in exchange for his immediate resignation and a signed NDA. I felt the world tilt sideways. For months, he'd been lying. For 4 months, leaving the house in suits, carrying his briefcase, returning home with fabricated stories about meetings and projects. Where had he been going? Daniel's answer arrived like a fist to the stomach. Casimus. Jason had been gambling, not casually, addictively, desperately. He'd burned through his severance in 6 weeks, then started borrowing from friends, from Daniel, from people Daniel wouldn't name but described as dangerous. The chai latte had gone cold in my hands. I set it down, afraid my trembling fingers would drop it. I asked Daniel why he was telling me this now, why not months ago. His expression cracked, showing something raw underneath. Because he'd just found out about the second mortgage. Jason had forged my signature on documents, taken out a home equity loan against the house we'd bought together. Our house, the one I'd poured my savings into, the down payment I'd worked 3 jobs to afford before we even got married, $130,000. Gone. I couldn't breathe. The coffee shop felt too small, too warm, walls pressing in. I stood abruptly, chair scraping loud enough to turn heads. Daniel followed me outside, where the November air hit like a slap, sharp and clarifying. He wasn't finished. There was more. Jason had a burner phone. Daniel had seen it by accident when Jason's jacket fell open during a card game at someone's house 2 weeks ago. When confronted, Jason had sworn it was nothing, but Daniel had noticed the calls, always stepping away, always at odd hours, always returning with excuses about work stress or vendor issues, for a job he no longer had. I leaned against the brick wall of the coffee shop, feeling the rough texture through my coat, grounding myself in something solid while everything else dissolved. I asked Daniel if he knew who Jason was calling. He didn't know for certain, but he'd seen message notifications flash on the screen, pet names, heart emote, promises about when this is all over. The betrayal was layered, each revelation opening like Russian nesting dolls, smaller horrors hidden inside larger ones, financial devastation, lies, gambling addiction, possible affair, and underneath it all, forgery, my signature used without permission. My name attached to debt I hadn't agreed to, my future mortgaged for his self-destruction. Daniel reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded paper. He'd printed records, bank statements from Jason's account that Daniel had access to as a co-signer on an old loan, dates and times of casino transactions, screenshots of the home equity loan documents he'd obtained through a friend in real estate, everything I'd need to verify his claims. I took the papers with numb fingers. They felt heavier than they should, weighted with the gravity of proof, evidence that my marriage was a house built on sand, already collapsing beneath me while I'd been inside, unaware, arranging furniture and planning a future that didn't exist. I didn't confront Jason that night, didn't let on that anything had changed. When he came home at his usual time, the time that used to be late from work but was now simply late from wherever he actually spent his days, I greeted him normally, asked about his day, listened to his elaborate fiction about a difficult client and a project running behind schedule. He was good at lying, smooth, convincing. I wondered how I'd ever believed him. Over the next 2 weeks, I became a detective in my own life. I hired a forensic accountant, a stern woman named Margaret, who examined our finances with surgical precision. She confirmed everything Daniel had told me and found more: credit cards I didn't know existed, maxed out, and in collections, personal loans from payday lenders at predatory interest rates, our savings account, the one we'd been building for a down payment on a bigger house, was completely drained. I contacted a divorce attorney, then a second one for a different opinion. Both told me the same thing. The forged signature on the home equity loan was fraudulent, criminal fraud. I could report it, potentially avoid responsibility for the debt, but it would mean pressing charges against my own husband. I installed tracking software on our shared computer, waiting for Jason to slip up. He did. His email account, opened carelessly one morning when he thought I was in the shower, revealed messages to someone named Vanessa, plans to meet, discussions about leaving town together once he sorted out the money situation, promises that they'd start fresh somewhere new, somewhere his mistakes wouldn't follow him. The affair was real, and he was planning to run, leaving me buried under his debt. I documented everything, took photos of bank statements, screenshots of emails, and copies of the forged loan documents. I backed it all up in 3 places: cloud storage, external hard drive, and a safety deposit box at a bank Jason didn't know about. Daniel became an unexpected ally. He provided more information: names of people Jason owed money to, dates of casino visits, details about the embezzlement that the NDA had buried. He felt guilty, he said, for not coming forward sooner, for watching his friend destroy himself and drag me down with him. I asked Daniel if he knew how much Jason owed these dangerous people he'd mentioned. His answer made my blood run cold. $40,000, 2 loan sharks who didn't accept payment plans or excuses. Jason was in deeper than I'd imagined, and when those men came collecting, they wouldn't care whose name was on the house or whose credit was ruined. They'd take what they wanted from whoever was available. I needed to act fast. The home equity loan was due for its first payment in 3 weeks. If I was going to separate myself from Jason's disaster, if I was going to survive this with anything intact, I needed to move now. I arranged everything for a Friday evening. Jason thought we were having Daniel over for dinner, just a casual night with his oldest friend. He didn't know I'd also invited Margaret, the accountant, my attorney, Patricia, and 2 police detectives I'd been consulting with about the fraud. When Jason arrived home and saw the cars in the driveway, his face went carefully blank. That mask he wore so well. He walked into our dining room and froze. Everyone was seated around the table where we'd shared hundreds of meals, celebrated anniversaries, and hosted holidays. Now it was covered with printed documents, bank statements, loan papers, and screenshots, evidence arranged like place settings. Patricia stood first. She explained calmly that I was filing for divorce on grounds of fraud and adultery. I'd reported the forged signature on the home equity loan to the police and was seeking to have the loan declared invalid based on identity theft. Jason's mask cracked. He looked at me, eyes wide with something between betrayal and panic. He started to speak, to offer explanations, but Detective Morrison cut him off. They'd been investigating the embezzlement. Jason's former employer had reconsidered the NDA after learning about the home equity fraud. They were cooperating with the police now, providing evidence of the stolen funds. Combined with the forged documents, Jason was looking at multiple felony charges. The room felt airless. Jason's face had gone pale, sweat beading on his forehead. He turned to Daniel, looking for support, for the friendship he'd always counted on. Daniel shook his head slowly, told him he couldn't stay silent anymore, couldn't watch him destroy Rachel and himself without intervening. Jason's shock transformed into rage. He lunged toward the table, scattering papers, shouting that I was ruining his life, that I didn't understand the pressure he'd been under, that he'd made mistakes but was trying to fix them. His voice bounced off the walls, sharp and desperate. Detective Morrison stood, hand near his belt, and asked Jason to calm down. The second detective, a woman named Hayes, explained that he could come voluntarily to the station to give a statement, or they could arrest him now. His choice. Jason's shoulders sagged. The fight drained out of him like water from a punctured container. He asked if he could get a few things from upstairs. Detective Hayes accompanied him, watching as he packed a bag with mechanical movements, someone going through motions while their mind processed a reality they couldn't escape. Before they left, Jason looked at me one last time. His eyes held something I couldn't quite read: regret, maybe, or resentment, perhaps both. He opened his mouth as if to say something, then thought better of it. What was there to say? Sorry wouldn't repay the money. Explanations wouldn't erase the betrayal. The detectives walked him out to their car, not in handcuffs, not yet, but the implication was clear. He was in custody, whether formal or voluntary. Patricia had already filed a restraining order, preventing him from accessing any joint accounts or properties. After they left, the house felt enormous and hollow. Margaret packed up her documents. Patricia reviewed the next step: scored dates, asset division, and the criminal proceedings. Daniel lingered, asking if I was okay, if I needed anything. I told him I needed the truth. How long had he really known? His answer was honest, painfully so. He'd suspected for over a year, noticed inconsistencies. Jason is borrowing money repeatedly, mood swings, defensive reactions to simple questions, but he hadn't known the full extent until recently. Hadn't understood that it was all connected: the job loss, the gambling, the affair, the fraud, until he'd started pulling threads and watched the whole tapestry unravel. I thanked him for caring enough to intervene, for risking his friendship to tell me the truth, for giving me the weapons I needed to fight back. He left, and I stood alone in my dining room, surrounded by the wreckage of my marriage, feeling something unexpected rising in my chest. Not sadness, not quite, something sharper, cleaner. Relief. The legal proceedings took 8 months. Jason pleaded guilty to fraud and embezzlement in exchange for a reduced sentence. 18 months in minimum security, followed by probation and restitution payments. His affair with Vanessa evaporated the moment. He couldn't provide the escape he'd promised her. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday morning in April. The judge ruled in my favor on every contested issue. I kept the house after successfully proving the home equity loan was fraudulent. The bank was forced to void it since my signature had been forged. Jason was held responsible for all gambling debts and personal loans. My credit remained intact. The loan sharks never came for me. Once Jason was arrested, and it became clear there was no money to collect, they wrote off the debt. Apparently, pursuing a divorced woman who'd reported fraud wasn't worth their trouble. I sold the house anyway. Too many ghosts, too many memories of the life I'd thought I was building. I bought a smaller place across town, modern and clean, with no history except what I'd create. Daniel and I stayed friends, though things were different now. He carried guilt for not speaking up sooner. I reassured him that he'd done the right thing, eventually. That his timing had probably saved me from even worse financial ruin. But we both knew the friendship had shifted, marked permanently by the role he'd played in exposing Jason. I went back to school, using the money I'd salvaged from the divorce to pursue a degree in financial law. If I could navigate this nightmare, I could help others trapped in similar situations. There was purpose in that, power in transforming pain into expertise. Some nights, I still wake up angry, furious, at the time stolen, the trust shattered, the future erased. But more often, I wake up grateful. Grateful, Daniel spoke up. Grateful I listened. Grateful I had the strength to gather evidence, to build a case, to fight instead of accepting the destruction Jason had planned for me. The truth is, betrayal doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it wears a familiar face, sleeps beside you, promises you forever, while systematically dismantling your life. Sometimes the person you trust most is the one who sees the danger and risks everything to warn you. I learned that intuition is data your subconscious processes before your conscious mind catches up. I learned that documentation is power. And I learned that revenge doesn't have to be violent or cruel sometimes. It's simply refusing to go down with someone else's sinking ship, cutting the ropes that bind you to their disaster, and swimming to shore while they drown in the consequences of their own making. To everyone reading this, listening to this story, if something feels wrong in your relationship, investigate. If someone trustworthy warns you, listen. And if you discover betrayal, document everything before you confront anyone. Evidence is the difference between being believed and being dismissed, between protecting yourself and being destroyed alongside the person who betrayed you. Have you ever had someone reveal a truth that changed everything? How did you handle it? Share your experiences in the comments. And if this story resonated with you, if you felt that sinking realization that nothing is as it seemed, subscribe, because these stories matter. They remind us that we're not alone in betrayal, and that survival, real survival, with dignity and justice is possible. The lies in your house might be invisible, but they leave traces, and when someone shows you those traces, believe them.